It feels like we see devastating wildfires on the news all the time, right? Well, in response, the White House has just dropped a huge new directive, Executive Order 14308, that's supposed to completely overhaul how we fight these disasters. So, what's actually in this thing? Let's break it down and decode it together. Okay, so right out of the gate, this order gets straight to the point. It actually names a specific catastrophic event as the reason it even exists. So this isn't just some abstract policy paper. It's being presented as a direct answer to a recent tragedy, which immediately sets a tone of real urgency. All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll look at the crisis that kicked this whole thing off, how it's shaking up the federal command structure, what it means for local partners, the new tools and rules involved, and finally, the really tight deadlines they've set. Let's dive in. First up, a response to crisis. This is Section 1, and it really lays out the why behind the entire order. You can think of it as the mission statement for everything that's about to follow. And wow, this thing does not pull any punches. The order comes right out and says that slow responses are a direct result of reckless mismanagement and unnecessary regulation. I mean, that's some pretty blunt language for a government document. And that diagnosis, that becomes the core justification for every action that comes next. Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? Well, the first big move is to streamline the federal command. This is Section 2, and it's all about unifying the government's effort. The order basically says the federal system is fractured. Right now, you've got the Department of the Interior with its wildfire programs and the Department of Agriculture with its own separate programs. It's like having two teams on the field wearing the same jersey but running different plays. It can lead to a ton of inefficiency and confusion right when you need clarity the most. So the fix is pretty straightforward, at least on paper. It's a three-part plan. 1, consolidate the fire offices. 2, unify their budgets and how they buy stuff. And 3, streamline all their research. The whole idea is to get everyone on the same page, to create one single cohesive federal firefighting force instead of two separate ones working in parallel. And get this, they have to move fast. The order gives the Secretaries of Interior and Agriculture just 90 days to develop and present this consolidation plan. A deadline that tight really screams that this is a massive priority for the administration. All right, so shaking up the federal government is one thing, but the next section is about something bigger. It's a real philosophical shift. We're moving from the feds calling all the shots to actually empowering the local folks on the front lines. And this slide really sums it up perfectly. The old way, federal bureaucracy. The new approach they're pushing for, it's all about local incentives and real partnerships. It's a totally different mindset. And this isn't just talk either. They're backing it up with tools. The order literally calls for a new tech roadmap to get some serious cutting-edge gear to local firefighters. We're talking about things like AI, way better data sharing, super innovative mapping, and even tech that can help identify how and where a fire started. The goal is to give those local teams a massive advantage. Next up, we're looking at sections 4 and 5 together, because they're really two sides of the same coin. You could call it a two-pronged attack. Get smarter with prevention, and at the same time, slash the red tape that gets in the way. So, one of the big tools for prevention is something called a prescribed fire. Now, this might sound a little scary, but it's actually a really smart technique. It's a controlled, intentional burn to clear out all the dead stuff on the forest floor. You get rid of that fuel, and you make it way less likely for a small spark to turn into an absolute monster of a wildfire. The order wants to make sure old rules aren't stopping these from happening. Another cool idea in here is what to do with woody biomass. That's just a fancy term for all the extra junk in a forest. Fallen branches, low-quality wood, that kind of thing. Instead of letting it sit there as potential wildfire fuel, the idea is to get it out and use it for something else, like generating energy. It's a win-win. You clean up the forest and get a resource out of it. And when they say they're going to review the rules, they mean they're looking at everything. Seriously, the order puts a whole bunch of regulations under the microscope. We're talking about rules for using fire retardant, best practices for keeping power lines clear of trees, even pending lawsuits against utility companies. They're even looking at declassifying old satellite data to help build better prediction models. Nothing seems to be off the table. Okay, last but definitely not least, let's talk about accountability, because this executive order isn't just a wish list. Nope, it's a set of direct commands, and each one comes with a ticking clock. And these deadlines are no joke. In just 90 days, 3 months, that big federal consolidation plan has to be ready.
A month after that, at 120 days, historical satellite data gets released. By 180 days, that tech roadmap for local firefighters needs to be done. Then, at 210 days, they need a plan to sell off extra military planes for firefighting. This isn't a long-term vision, it's an all-out sprint.
So that's the order in a nutshell. It's ambitious, for sure. It calls for consolidating federal power, giving local teams better tools, and slashing red tape, all on a super tight timeline. The plan is there, it's on paper, but it all comes down to this one big question. With all these new directives and breakneck deadlines, will this actually be enough to turn the tide on America's wildfire crisis?